Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way on this episode of Off 90. We'll share some unforgettable stories from our past 3 seasons. Get reacquainted with some of the artists in our area. Rediscover historical places and events in southern Minnesota. Also, we'll review unique cultural characteristics found in our region. Hop in and let's take a trip down memory lane on Off 90. Since Off 90 began, we've sought out stories that exemplify art, culture, and history unique to our region of Minnesota. We've visited young as well as established artists and have exhibited their distinctive visions. We've explored historical places and events from southern Minnesota. We've also showcased some of the distinguishing characteristics that make up the culture in our area. On this special episode of Off 90, we'll return to some of the important stories we've covered over our 3 seasons on the air. Please enjoy these stories from our corner of Minnesota.
Okay, we're going to go this time. We're going to whip out another purple one here. There we go. Voila, we got another piece. Nice straight stitch all the way down. I just start cutting strips of fabric and start sewing them together. And then next thing you know, out comes a kite. I'm known as Mr. Kite. My real name is Craig Christensen, but people all over have known me by the name of Mr. Kite, and I answer to both. Live here in Webster, Minnesota, and been making kites for about 20-some years.
There, we got wind now.
It's unique in a ways, but if you stop and talk to people, somewhere in their life, there's been some kites involved. They've had an uncle that's made kites, or their dad used to make kites. You've always got somebody that comes up and gives you a kite story.
Just give it a little tug on the line.
I've had a love for flying from day one. My father was an airline pilot, and I was basically raised around airplanes. I got into model airplanes very heavy in the early years, and it got to be just a little much. Didn't have enough time to keep putting airplanes together, so wandered into a kite shop, found some kind of neat looking kites, and bought a couple $100 worth of them. Then one winter day, it was way too windy to fly model airplanes, and decided, well, let's get some of them kites out and see how they go, you know. Well, that was it. All of a sudden, I'm hooked. I was about 40 years old or better, and when I bought these kites in the kite shop, and I got the look, and I thought, well, somebody else can build this stuff, I can too. This one, this is my very first one that I made right here. And so Mom had an old sewing machine, and I dug that out, and I got some fabric, and it's like, oh, I can do that. I just take 3 or 4 rolls of fabric, and it's the same cloth that you see on the big sailboats with the big colorful sail out in the front. You just roll along, and voila, you got a piece. And what we do is make just a whole pile of them, and then we just keep adding them up till we get kites. There's times where I'll sit down and I'll sew for, 6 or 8 hours if nothing else is happening. And it just really isn't that hard. Pretty near everything will fly. Just have to work with it a little more than some of it. A lot of my stuff is like patchwork quilt stuff or pieces of stained glass. It's the same as the artist does with sculpture or painting. Some people paint on canvas. Well, I do fabric work, and it's a piece of artwork. It just isn't on canvas, and it isn't hanging on a wall. It's flying in the air. Peaceful. You're out in the fresh air. You're usually out where it's nice. Kite is just kind of floating around in the sky, and I always say that kite line just pulls the nastiness out of you and takes it off to somewhere where it needs to go.
A miniature is a condensation of something larger. I don't do insects. I don't do things that are naturally tiny. I make things that are larger, smaller. You can actually hold these things in your hands. It's an easier thing to grasp, and it's not threatening either. You become like a vessel of it. It's really important, the connection between the hands and a miniature object. And I've been exploring it for 15 years. I'm Steve Tomaszak, and I'm a professional whittler. No one grows up thinking they're going to be a whittler. I got started in wood carving when I was a kid, probably around 12, 13 years old, and it wasn't until college that I really took it up as a full-time hobby, as something that I wanted to do every day. And at one point I decided I really want to carve everything. It wasn't until the 3rd or 4th year of college that I actually started doing this every day. And at first I wasn't all that good, so it wasn't like I stood out. I was just the guy that had the bandage on his hand. My carvings range in size from about 1/4 inch up to about 5 inches. I've probably made almost 10,000 carvings. The miniature menagerie is a collection of exotic creatures. It's kind of a loose term. It doesn't mean that I'm building an ark or anything like that. I just have a collection of animals that I'm making, and that includes monsters and beasts, but also stuff out of my own imagination, whatever I can come up with. There's miniature objects all around us. It's just that I'm taking the time to make them special. I'm doing them one at a time, and I'm using my hands to do it.
I'm used to people asking me questions on how we live, and I can see why. They're always wondering, and I guess we don't advertise too much the way we live. It's getting to be quite a bit out there anymore. The more information you have on us, or the more it's out there, the less unique we will be. My grandparents were one of the first people to move out here. They maybe moved in 75. I'm not quite sure, was it 74 or 75? And then my parents decided we're gonna move out here too from Ohio, and that was in 85 then. It was a nice area, I guess, for farming. That was the main reason why they settled into this area. The first people that came around here, you know, that were out looking for a place to move to, stopped here because they thought this would be a good place for us to farm. I grew up Amish, and for somebody that never was Amish and goes Amish, I have no way of telling you what that guy would have to go through. And there's no way I will ever be able to. But I imagine it would be pretty tough. You know, as far as the simple things, as far for you having a bathroom in the house, that would definitely be a big change. And not having a phone or electric, or as far as if he'd want to use the microwave, there is no way to quickly heat up a cup of coffee. Unless you got hot water and the stove going, you can do it. There's also a lot of things that I don't envy you guys for what you have on a lot of things, I guess. We do have our hectic. It seems hectic for us too, but you guys have another level on that one on us. But you are people just like we are. We're all humans, and the older I get, the more I realize it.
I'm a barn cat, not an alley cat or a house cat. I don't sit in laps. I got a real job. I catch mice. It's a tough life. I'm a barn cat. This is my territory. Bow wows, look out. I got sharp claws and a king-size bed made out tough life. I'm a born cat. Born cat.
Band music is fun. It has a different dimension from orchestra music and classical music, even if you're playing the same piece. If the bandstand is the crown of the community, the brass band is the jewel in that crown. The Chatfield Brass Band in this community, I think, has a special place.
My father was Jim Perkins, who started the brass band in 1969 and the brass band Free Music Lending Library shortly after that. My dad decided that Chatfield needed to have an area band. And so what he did is he grabbed some old high school yearbooks and looked for pictures of people that he knew, sent him a note saying, hey, show up at band practice Thursday night. So once they created the band, then the biggest challenge was sheet music. They had to have music to play. Well, where do you find it?
Where do you find that music? In these filing cabinets.
My name is Teresa Serling, and I'm the library manager. This is a library of mostly band music. We lend the actual paper music out to bands and individuals all over the world.
This library is an incredible resource with literally tens and tens of thousands of compositions of almost every imaginable nature. It basically becomes part of one big story, the American melting pot music story of different music from different cultures. Nowhere else in the country is there this much resource in one place.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, one man, a vision, and a dream. He's been gone almost 20 years, and just to really see this thrive and live on, it's just very worthwhile. I think he really found joy in that. Just filling lives and communities full of music is what a great gift to do. What a great legacy to leave behind.
We always farmed together. Well, we kind of had no choice but got stuck into farming, right? I suppose. That's what we were doing, so we kept on. It took a half a day every day to do the chores and clean out the barn. And we had a little 39 John Deere B. If it was too cold for the dog, we didn't go out in the field either. We're the Minnesota Twins. Yeah, sometimes I say he's Minneapolis and I'm St. Paul. And this is the Gopher State. We go for this, we go for that. Well, not too long ago, though, he went to get a haircut. And then and 2 weeks later, he goes in there. Oh, my gosh, your hair grew like that? Says, wasn't you in here a little bit ago? I said, no. Yeah, that's why we don't want the same doctor we got, because we are a couple of different people. And then we lived south of Boston. And then in the 30s, was it 32 or so, we lived where we are now. First year, it didn't have no foundation in the house. And it was real cold, but they had thrash machine wheels. We still got the thrash machine wheels. Moved a 14 by 20 house down the end of the road. They got it for $200. Well, Depression years, it was a little rough. Huh? Depression years was rough. Yeah, people didn't have money. No. Well, there used to be a bank in Dexter, and everybody says, we're the ones that broke the bank. I don't know why they say that. Well, somebody in the Dexter Bank, I think 1929 was it, they took some pigs to town. They didn't have much money, but the bank was kind of closed, and he knocked on there, and well, he'd like to put the money in the bank. The next morning, he lost it. The bank closed, and he didn't get his money. That was kind of bad, wasn't it? You know, been better if he was a little bit later. Of course, Dad died in 1946. November the 16th, the crop was all in the field. It was mud that year. And it took us till the last of January to harvest. And then, boy, did it snow then. The neighbors offered to help us. I said, well, you got all you can do, we'll keep on. Well, nowadays they got such fast machinery. Yeah, they'd gladly come and help us. Some people say, what good old days, but you'll hear 40s, 50s, they were good years for everybody. Things were reasonable, and you buy good products. But I don't know why they really call it. Some didn't think it was good old days, but I didn't think they were so bad. I know you had to work. Yeah, you might get tired. You never quite retire.
Thank you for taking this trip with us down memory lane. I hope you've enjoyed our past seasons of Off 90, and I hope you'll continue to enjoy the unique and wonderful stories we'll bring you in the future. That's all for this episode. See you next time. Off 90.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.